So, Lee, I have a question for you.
Fire away.
What's takeover?
I mean, I love it. So who knows where this little piece of content will be cut into the video that you lovely people on YouTube are watching. But yes, this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Andertons and PRS are doing a sort of a social media collaboration. So all guns are blazing across Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. We'll be putting up videos on all the new products that PRS have launched in 2021, plus a ton of other cool stuff from PRS involving behind the scenes stuff and artists and all sorts. So thank you very much for watching that, and please like and subscribe to the 2 YouTube channels so that you don't miss anything.
All right, so this is a combination of the Captain Show. What do you call the Captain Show?
The Captain Meets.
The Captain Meets. And what's the other show?
Well, yours is the long distance
the
call,
long
isn't it?
distance. So this is the long distance the Captain Meets. Is that what this is?
I hope so.
I think that's what it's going to be. I think we're there. I think we're there. So, what were you just saying? I'm sorry, I'm screaming to turn the cameras on because you started down a road I didn't want to miss.
I mean, you're in denial, but about 4 years ago, I swear blind, you gave me that shirt at the NAMM show, and then the following year I gave it back to you because I felt guilty about taking it.
I'm in denial. Oh, this is going to be fun. All right, so look, I'm in denial. You need therapy over that conversation. So let me explain. In this building, if somebody comes up to me who's been working for me for a long time and says, nice shirt, they get the shirt off my back, which I did with you. This was just bought off eBay.
Nice. Because
I ran out of shirts. And this is a Armani Collection $800 shirt that I bought for $42 on eBay. Turns out you can buy really nice shirts on eBay that haven't been worn at all. And this is not your shirt. As a matter of fact, I've never owned an Armani Collection shirt. Yours is not Armani Collection. If you want to look in the label, you need therapy.
I got to worry. So you think you've bought a genuine Armani shirt with an $800 recommended price tag and you paid $42
You're saying
for
I'm wearing a fake. I like it even better.
I've got this... I just bought this amazing PRS from a guy in China for $99 as well. Do you think it's a real one? I'm not sure if it, I mean, it looks pretty real. But...
all right, you know something, I'm coming after you. You ready? So, you get to interview everybody. Now I'm going to come after you. Does that sound good?
Good. Yes, please do. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so everybody's asked you why you're the captain. And I assume you tell the truth, right?
Yes.
Okay, now I want you to lie and tell them why you think you really are named the captain.
Well, I mean, obviously I graduated at Sandhurst Officer Training School in 1990.
Is this the real story or is this the fake story?
You know, 3 terms in Iraq and Afghanistan and made my way up and obviously retired from the army about 10 years ago and decided to start a YouTube channel.
And you worked for MI6, is that correct?
MI7, but that's the one that doesn't exist officially, so MI6 will do.
Actually, you guys
Do you know what? Honestly, I do feel I have no military or service background at all. When we started the YouTube channel 10 years ago, Rob Chapman told me I needed a nickname because prior to that I was just Lee. And Rob said, well, you're the captain of the good ship Andertons, so I will call you the captain.
The captain.
And it stuck. And there's a little tinge of slight sort of, you know, not embarrassment is the wrong word, but, you know, I don't want to disrespect anybody that genuinely has reached the rank of captain in whatever profession they've done, because I certainly haven't. But that's why I have that nickname.
All right, so they've given me a nickname here, which I don't like. I think it started on the internet, PRSH. Which is just stands for himself, which is, I mean, come on, give me a break. Not something I wanted. I've got a lot of nicknames for myself. Most of them not complimentary, but.
I like it. I thought it was going to be, the PRS himself. What else do you, Because I won't tell people what it is, but I like your email address as well. It's quite, it's to the point and.
Okay, wait. You're not going to share my email address on international
No, I'm not going to share your email address.
I'd have to change it the next day. That's not fair. All right, so.
It's a good one.
What's the most interesting thing in your room other than your soul? What's in the room you're in? What's the most interesting thing in the whole room other than you?
Wow.
Because we could burn the building down, and we wouldn't care. And we wouldn't care if you were alive. So therefore, you're the most interesting thing in the room. Period. But other than you, what's the most interesting thing in the room?
I have got it's got to be a gear-related question, hasn't it? I've got the number 2 of 100 slash AFD 100 guitar amp head. Slash has number 1 and I have number 2. So I've got, that's kind of cool. I might rush in and get that. I mean, all the guitars. I'll tell you what I have got. In fact, I'll show it to you. I have got the acoustic guitar that my dad learned to play on, which is it's American, but just like a catalog guitar from the I don't know what this would be from, the 50s or the 60s.
Yeah,
the brand is Michigan, and it was made under license for a catalog company, B&SL. I think B&SL. So it's a bit like a K guitar kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's probably worth nothing, but sentimentally, it's worth a lot. Thank you, Tay. And I've got loads of lovely guitars from you guys, and Fender and Gibson and G&L, and I mean, I'm looking around Gretsch. I'm very lucky. Well, I'm sure like yourself. It's what we do, isn't it, for a living? So
and you have the fake, and then you have the fake in your hands, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What do you? I mean, I know Gibson has Chibson. What do you have? Do you have, like, I don't know? Is it PQS?
I'm not going to answer that question, but I will tell you the first time I went to Japan, they had Marsnall amps, where they had taken the H and broken it off as an N, and it said Marsnall, and there were other amps that said Mad Shell. And so, it looked just like Marshall, but it was trademark violation 101. So I've seen a lot of things where it said PRS on the headstock at trade shows, and we said, you can't do that. And they went, yeah, okay, and they put it away. They always try.
It's the Wild West out there, isn't it? There's probably a really successful chain of Andertons stores just called something marginally different that I don't know anything about, but good luck to them. Good luck to them.
So where did your love of music come from? Where did this moment happen where you decided you wanted to be in the music business? What happened? How did that come about?
Well, I think it's impossible really for it not to. My dad and my granddad started Andertons back in the 60s, so I spent most of my summer holidays and weekends hanging out in the store and kind of loving the vibe. But I would say my specific love for the guitar was probably quite late, in the sense of I was probably 15 or 16, maybe 15 years old, and a girlfriend of mine at school had played me a VHS tape of Pink Floyd's Delicate Sound of Thunder gig. I think they did it in, was it Long Island or wherever, that amazing live show, just where the first kind of tour that they did, I think, where Dave Gilmour was the sort of full frontman, no Roger Waters. And I expect everybody's, can recall that moment where they just heard someone play the guitar, and it just, I'd heard, my dad had a great record collection, so lots of classic rock, and his two favourite bands were Steely Dan and The Police. So if you can kind of think of loads and loads of other great bands like Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke, Yellow Jackets, loads of those kind of more sort of jazzy fusion guys, and the usual collection of Zeppelin and Hendrix and Free. So I was well educated by my dad in good music, I think.
Well, that was
about 15 years old when Delicate Sound of Thunder came out. That was I need to go and play the guitar. So I bought myself a red cheap Strat thing and wanted to be David Gilmour, basically.
It's a good answer. I'm not going to futz with you on it because it's a heartfelt answer. So, I like this question. So, of all the famous musicians you've interviewed, what's the one that you got starstruck the most by? What's the one that was the one that really comes to mind? So I'm going to tell you a story just to kind of remind you of these kinds of experiences. One time, somebody showed up from the Russian government in our booth at NAMM, and they had an interpreter, and I tried to find out the interpreter's name, and they were such high-level people. The interpreter was under instructions that they had no name. They were all dressed to the nines. I mean, they handled themselves perfectly, and what they wanted to do was find out which of the companies at NAMM they could sell Russian tubes to, because he was in charge of monetizing the infrastructure of the Russian military. And this thing with Gorbachev had just happened, and you know, all that stuff had happened. And he held his stuff. He was as elegant and classy a human being as you'd ever want to meet. He was a pure dignitary, you know, a diplomat. Carlos Santana walked in, he lost it. Walked into the booth, he lost his noodles, he became a kid. It was a different animal, right? So which one? Which one?
So I've probably still got 2 or 3 guitar players on my bucket list that I would say would properly make me starstruck. Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, and John Mayer. Because I think those 3, there's probably other ones as well, but those 3 in particular, I would
left
sort of
Jeff Beck off the list.
I've left Jeff Beck off the list. I mean, look, I don't mean my list of people who are, that's a list of people that would make me starstruck. Like, I don't know what I would say if I was in that situation. Whereas I'd like to think, you know, there's another list beyond that of amazingly talented people that I hope I could string a sentence together to when I met them. But of the ones that I've met, actually, in all fairness, we did get to hang out very kindly down to you guys, really. We got to hang out with John backstage at a gig.
Yeah.
And he was really, really lovely and didn't make us feel starstruck at all. So that was nice. But I would say, I mean, Carlos Santana, just, that was a Zoom interview. And I always feel there's a slight sense of it's not real when it's on Zoom. But I was amazed by what a cool cat he was and how much he opened up and how willing he was to share life experiences and stuff. Of the other guys, I would say Steve Vai was. I went into that interview going, I don't really like guitar instrumental music as such. Not I don't like it, but it's not. I like songs that have great guitar parts to them, as opposed to guitar parts for the sake of being technically, you know, very accomplished. So I would have said that someone like Steve was one of those guitar players that I'd never really drilled too deep into his musical career. I always wrongly so, I know now, I probably saw him as someone that was just a technically crazy proficient guitar player.
Gifted musician, absolutely gifted.
Yeah, and then I met him and got to spend some time getting to know him and understanding what a phenomenal composer he is, what a deep thinking musician he is, what a deep thinking person generally he is. So I started that interview not being starstruck and finished it being starstruck. Yeah. So that was cool. I mean, look, I don't know. Lots of people have made me. Albert Lee, you know, we played a piece of music in the Albert Lee interview that was played at my father-in-law's funeral. That made me cry a bit. That was, I'll never forget that moment. Loads of other players. I mean, it's a bit unfair to pick them out.
Nah, it's actually not unfair because I'm going to tell you what happened to me. All right?
Go on.
I got backstage to Return to Forever, one of their very first gigs in Maryland. And I had a guitar and I wanted to show it to Stanley Clarke. And I lost my shit. They opened the door. I couldn't control my voice. Hi, Steve. I completely lost it. He goes, calm down. Calm down. And I literally lost it. And, you know, because at the time he had just been on the cover of Guitar Player, the only bass player to ever be on the cover of Guitar Player. And at the time he was a musical, god. And I lost it. I've never lost it before. I literally lost it as a kid. Maybe I'm glad I lost it with him, a bass player, instead of losing it. I met Gilmore once. I didn't lose it. He was a lovely human being, by the way. I don't have the experience of Zoom that you have. I can't. When I'm on Zoom with these people, I feel like I'm in their home. Somehow I don't feel disconnected from you talking to you. But then again, I know you, right? So I don't feel disconnected. I understand that feeling. But we've been doing a lot of Zooms here, and it's been going unbelievably well. We start our long distance on Zoom, so I don't know.
I don't mind. I mean, I don't. I think what people don't see when I've interviewed people in the flesh, typically what's happened is they've arrived here an hour before. We've gone to get some lunch. You've broken all the ice. You've told, you've heard some funny stories. They've told, you've shared some guitar stories, and then when the interview starts, it feels like two people who are a little bit acquainted talking, and all the Zoom stuff tends to be 9 o'clock. That's when you're booked for. Can we keep it to within 30 or 40 minutes, please? Okay. Sometimes the person you're interviewing, their managers said, can they see the questions you want to ask? And that's not really my style. So I always feel the Zoom calls are just a bit more. It's just not the same. It's not the same.
All right, so let's go real deep for a second.
Go on.
Favorite meal in America, favorite meal in the UK. And I have answers too.
Oh man. I mean, I think isn't it terrible? I mean, I don't think I've ever really experienced true American food other than there was a crazy place in Nashville that did a lot of barbecued stuff or smoked, stuff in a smoker. I wish I could remember the name.
It's called
people
barbecue.
In Nashville will know it. It's the famous one you have to queue to get into.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say that in America, that was probably. I mean, you're talking to a guy here who I would say 90% of my American experience is going to Anaheim for the NAMM show and eating the shittiest food known to man. So I'd hate to sort of base my entire sort of opinion on American food on what I've eaten in Anaheim, and then over here, I mean, I don't think England has a brilliant sort of culinary reputation. I think our roast dinners are pretty unbeatable. But if I could, if I'm eating out, I'm going to go Italian or Indian.
But you guys have things like shepherd's pie. There's a huge Indian culture in England of Indian food. I mean, you do take all the little teeny baby shrimps nobody else will take and turn them into sandwiches for reasons we won't do here in America.
I don't know. I mean, Indian food is, or British Indian food is its own
thing. That's why I brought it up.
And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It is. But I don't think it's terribly similar to anything you'd actually eat if you went to India. Although I've never been, so I can't say that with any certainty. It's just what I've been told.
Well, the best meal I ever had in England was crispy duck in Kew Gardens, and I'm telling you, it was to die for. With the plum sauce.
I think that's another one where, again, that the sort of the Far Eastern kind of the sort of what you typically see if you said I'm going to a Chinese restaurant in the UK probably isn't a great deal like what you get served if you went to China. But again, it's great.
I can pass on the haggis.
I've never had haggis. Oh, have I? Yeah, I mean that's That's a very Scottish thing. I don't think that comes south of the border terribly often.
Oh no, they serve it. No. All kinds of times I had breakfast in England on a thing. It would be in a plastic bag.
Oh, the full English breakfast is tough to beat. I think England may well be our finest culinary achievement is the full English breakfast. That is so much more appetizing than the European kind of continental.
Well,
have a bit of
next
hard
time
cheese
you come
and some stale bread.
Next time you come to America, I'm going to bring you for some good food. We actually have good food here in Annapolis called crab cakes. We actually have lots of good food. All right, I'm going to keep going.
Go on.
Wow. This was written by my team here. A lot of these questions where I just like them. So tell everybody the truth about the unglamorous part of running a worldwide music store that's really famous on the web. What's the unglamorous part? Actually, because we run a business here, I have an idea, but I want to know what you think.
It's not unglamorous. It's just normal. You know, I mean, we're fortunate in that. So the business that I kind of came into, that my dad started in the 60s, was past all of that kind of, is it going to work or is it going to fold kind of phase. So I am forever eternally grateful that I've never really had that sense of, oh my God, that's it. I've got a meeting with the bank manager on Friday, and if it doesn't go well, that's it. It's all over. So I've never had that, and I definitely know that my dad had those. Yeah. So I'm, you know, I will forever say to anybody that started their own business and has got through that phase, fair play to you, because that's the hardest bit, I'm sure. So the unglamorous bit is going to be, you know, we have to do now financial forecasting. You know, we have 150 members of staff that all need to get paid every month, and we have commitments on properties and bills to pay to guys like you. So we have to do financial forecasting and modeling, and what if this happens and what if that happens. And it's terribly dull, but it's, you know, has to be done. It would be, you know, you can't run a business the size of Andertons or PRS or whatever and just fly by the seat of your pants every day. Keep your fingers crossed and hope it all goes okay. So I am fortunate in that for a lot of the last 10 or 15 years, the business has been big enough for me to say, if there's a part of the business that's really important and I don't enjoy doing it, we can afford to employ someone else who does enjoy doing it and is much better at it than I am.
It's a good answer.
But yeah, I mean, when great people decide that their time at Andertons is done and they want to go and work somewhere else, you know, that's always tough to take, and you've got to feel like you've got to go through that process of trying not to take it personally and finding a good replacement for them and working through the period of time that, you know, whilst that new person beds in. What else?
That's a good answer.
I like it when it feels. I really enjoy this business best when it feels like everyone's winning. You know, when it feels like the supply side of the business is really happy with what you're doing, the customer side of the business is really happy with what you're doing, your staff are really happy with the environment that you've created, and I think that's, you know, that kind of that's when it's the best time to be involved. But inevitably, you know, as you go through the year, I would say more often than not, probably some of the relationships with the supply side of things are maybe a bit tougher, because I think, you know, sometimes you're not necessarily always on the same page as your suppliers are with where you're trying to take the business, and you've got to, you know, it is a partnership, and you've got to try and work through these things. I mean, I have to say, none of what I've just said applies to PRS. I think you've managed to find in Jez and Gavin over here and the team of people that they work with, just some of the nicest and easiest people to do business with. But there's plenty of other suppliers where it's slightly more difficult to navigate those relationships sometimes.
So listening to you answer these questions, it's like I'm meeting a different captain, because the way you're playful, with the people you interview is then where you're coming from now, in my experience, is a very thoughtful place of really trying to give a heartfelt answer to these questions. It's like listening to somebody different. But I like that. It is,
yeah, I am very aware that fundamentally what we're selling is a dream and a beautiful hobby. You know, it's like, for me, playing the guitar is something that brings me immense joy, and that part of me, that everything you see about me having fun playing guitar, meeting other people, jamming with other guitar players, the fun I'm having is completely real. It's not contrived in any way.
All right.
But I also appreciate that what keeps the business going is that customers out there will work really hard themselves to earn $100 or £100 or $1,000 or pounds, whatever, and then they're going to give you that money in return for something back, some goods or services back. And we have an obligation to make sure that they feel like that was the best possible way that they could have spent their money.
I agree with you.
And that side of things isn't, you know, I can't get it all wrong, or Andertons can't get it all wrong, and then just go, oh yeah, but it's all good fun, isn't it? And we're all mates, and yay. You know, that side of it's a proper business. That side of it is a really, really proper business that we take really, really seriously, and and I think when people ask me, I kind of feel if it's a question about running the business, then they'll get a pretty businessy answer. And if it's a question about why do you play guitar, because I love it and it's fun, and that's the answer.
Good. So I got bad news for you.
Okay.
You are now famous enough to get interrupted at dinner. And I know that's going to make you come out of your skin because you don't like even hearing that. But as Carlos Santana says, deal with it. So tell us one of the times where you got interrupted at dinner that's notable, that comes to mind, because you are now, I mean, this whole thing you've done has gone worldwide. Your videos are watched in our country daily, constantly.
I mean, I personally still find it weird that anybody would want to have their, like a selfie taken with me or whatever like that. But I don't, it does happen, and it's kind of cool, and I'll never ever tell anybody that, you know, it's inconvenient or whatever. It doesn't happen enough. You know, I'm not like Leonardo DiCaprio where you can't get 2 seconds without somebody. You know, it might happen, you know, if I'm near Andertons or I'm at the NAMM show, then it happens more regularly because there's loads of guitar players there. But if I'm just out and about, it doesn't happen very often. But I would say my wife finds it harder to deal with. She doesn't really like it when I get spotted and all of a sudden you're on holiday with the kids somewhere, not even in this country, and just walking along and you hear it's like, "Oi, Captain!" And you're just like, oh no. But definitely the most embarrassing times are when I've been with an artist somewhere. I mean, I'm not going to say their names because that would be embarrassing, but on 2 occasions I've been with a well-known artist, and a member of the public has walked over and said, "Oh, can I get a photo with you?" like that. So of course I have naturally assumed they mean with the artist, so I've stepped away to let them have the photo with the artist, and then they stand next to me and put their arm around me and snap the shot, and I'm just going like, oh no, this is so bad. I feel so bad now for the artist that I'm with. But I don't know, YouTube's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it's cool. It's almost like YouTube, you know, people who have a high profile YouTube channel now are like little minor celebrities themselves. It's very odd.
So my stepdaughter, when she was going to Broadneck High School, used to get followed around by people, and they would go, "Hey, Christina, can I have a free guitar?" She said it drove her nuts. She couldn't stand it. They didn't want to say, "Hello, my name is," all they wanted to do was drop the, you know, "Can you give me money?" question before they ever even met her, right? They wouldn't even wait. She was like, "You guys," she would shake her head and go, "This is unbelievable," right?
My 7-year-old daughter has now started saying, you know, Daddy, I want to be a YouTuber. It breaks my heart because it's just such a. I feel it's kind of sad in a way. I think was it David Bowie who said something along the lines of, you know, back in his day you had to be really good at something, and then fame was some sort of byproduct of being really good at something.
Yeah.
Now people just want to be famous. You know, there's no sense that you have to get good at something. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, but there's nobody on
terribly good at anything.
Yeah, but there's nobody on the planet better to teach her how to do what she wants to do than you. You know how to teach her how to do that. You know,
Well,
what a beautiful inn she
teach
wants
her
to
not to
follow
do it.
in your footsteps. That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell her to call me. I'll tell her how to manipulate you.
Okay. You can be Uncle Paul.
I can
when
be
she
Uncle
gets-
Paul. I would like that. All right, so I'm going to ask you one last question now.
Go for it.
All right, and then you get to ask me one
Okay.
lousy question. So if you had to get stuck in a building for a couple of days, any building in the world, and you had to be there for 2 days by yourself, stuck, doors locked, there's enough food and water to take care of you, what building would that be? Because I know the answer for me.
Wow, what building would that be? I mean, I hate to give a, you know, I'm going to give a shout out. I'm going to give two answers, actually. I'm going to give a shout out to the guys at Chicago Music Exchange, because that would be a cool building to be stuck in for 2 days and not be allowed out. But that's a bit of an obvious one, isn't it? So I will go with, where do I really like? If I could have the keys to literally just go everywhere and anywhere, this is probably a bit cliche as well, but I think somewhere like the Natural History Museum in London would be, or where else? I mean, but do you know what? The guy behind the camera here, Taylor, we both support the same football team, and he's read my mind. That was the other one. We get locked in West Ham's football stadium for 2 days and then just go and mess around in there, play football. But no.
That'd be fun.
So where would yours be?
I'd either want to get locked in the Louvre, or I'd want to get locked in the museum in Turin, where the David is, or I'd want to get, I'd want put a building up around Venice and get locked in my own building. Let's build a building around the entire island of Andros in the Bahamas, and then I'll get stuck in that.
Oh, if that was...
I mean, if it's any building, I can invent the building, right? I mean,
No,
I should be able to.
That's a shout. Maybe I'll withdraw my answer then. So I would go on to Marlon Brando's private island in the South Pacific.
That you
Yeah,
you put a warehouse around.
Oh man, do you know what? I know this sounds. If you could build me that building and guarantee that it had no mobile phone reception in it or Wi-Fi or anything like that, I think you could put me anywhere for 2 days as long as I had a guitar and something to eat and drink, and I'd be pretty happy actually. maybe make it a week.
You know, both Carlos Santana and John Mayer said, if I lose it all and you give me a guitar, I can rebuild and be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that as frivolous as we are around guitars, and you know, and obviously you've you've built an amazing business making guitars, and I've done pretty well selling them, and I kind of feel like, you know, we know that fashion is a big driver in what we're doing, and the right-looking guitar will be popular and the wrong-looking guitar won't, regardless of, you know, what goes into it. But I do feel there's a deeper level. Just the guitar itself in any form is something magical that you know, and perhaps other instrumentalists will feel the same about their chosen instrument, you know, but there's just something deep and very gratifying about being able to sit somewhere on your own and
So
play some
dangerous
chords.
question when you're sitting there, one pedal, one amp, one guitar, quick, go.
Oh.
That's too slow.
Only because I don't think I own a single guitar that I don't enjoy being away from it for a bit and then coming back to it. I don't know that there's, I mean, honestly, I think if I had to say you can only have one guitar, there absolutely is something about just a straight up, no frills Telecaster that kind of feels it's not going to do you any favors. It's just going to play the notes that you make it play.
And the pedal?
Pedal, I like, oh goodness me. Okay, I like, or in recent years, probably my favorite basic drive pedal is called a Greer Lightspeed. And it's basically, it's a very low gain, sort of just a lovely sounding, not too distorted pedal. And then as far as amps go, it would be anything clean and with a big bottom end. So as long as it's inspired by an old Fender Deluxe or something like that, and there's a ton of companies that make great versions of those. So, but I suppose in fairness, if we just have to go for the old-fashioned names, Fender Deluxe. Of course, very Fender video, this one, given that I'm talking to Paul Reed Smith on it, isn't it? What I should have said was
we can edit
a Silver
you out.
Sky, a Silver Sky, an Archon, and a pedal that you haven't yet made, but I'm sure will at some point in the future.
I'm not afraid of your answer. It shows, what's written on your bones. All right, so you get to ask me a question.
I knew this was coming and I'm completely unprepared, but I'd like to go, we might have to do 2 or 3 questions because that's my sort of style of just conversational interviewing. So how big a deal was it you getting Joe Walsh to agree to do a guitar with you?
Now I'm going to become you and get real introspective and quiet and try to answer the question correctly instead of making jokes the whole time. I thought it was a huge deal. He slammed his hand on the table and said, the world needs to pay attention to this single cutaway guitar. And I adored what he did. I just thought what he did was unbelievable. At the end of the entire video that we filmed, I told him I owed him dinner. And I wanted, buy him dinner for what he says, you owe me a lot more than that. But he didn't mean it in any harsh way. He meant it in a beautiful way that he had slammed his hand on the table and he knew who he was in the industry and I knew who I was, and he was going to really help us with the sale of these single cutaway guitars that we're tooled up for. And by the way, the tone he was getting out of the guitar it sounded lovely, and he was saying things about neck angle and fret level and that people don't usually stick their neck out about. He stuck his neck out, but then kings can do that because kings only care about what kings think. They're not worried about what the other endorser thinks. They're worried about what they think. And he's a king. In our world, he's a part of our musical royalty in this country, as Eric Clapton is musical royalty worldwide. So. I thought it was beautiful what he did, and I thanked him a lot. And I think what he said in the video was dead the truth. He didn't expect to get really touched by the instrument when it showed up. So how did it hit England? How did it hit the UK when that video came out? You must have got sideswiped. You didn't know that was coming.
No, I didn't know that was coming, and I think now it's, there'll be a whole generation of guitar players who will probably have heard of the Eagles, but, won't necessarily have grown up on their music. In fact, there'll be there'll be 2 or 3 generations of guitar players like that. So it's brilliant that the work that you're doing with Joe will make people go, oh, let me just type the Eagles into Spotify and see what comes up, because those people are going to get blown away by what they hear. That whole band was, that was a super group that didn't even need to be put together to be a super group. It was just a super group, of talented musicians. So yeah, I mean, there's a buzz around Joe's guitar. There's a buzz around Mark's guitar. There's just a buzz. I mean, I think it's I think we may have talked about this before, but I mean, obviously for all of the shitty side effects that COVID has had on the world, and the number of people who've died, and the lockdowns, and the mental health issues as a result of that, I've got to be honest with you, the number of people that have decided to either reignite their interest in playing music or have decided to go and play for the first time it inspires me deeply, because I'm sort of thinking, I've always thought, when there's conflict on the news and you see one culture of people fighting with another culture of people, I've always thought, if you guys could all just learn to play the guitar, you could turn up at these kind of, ceasefire meetings, have a bit of a jam, and realize actually there's very little, you have tons and tons in common and very little differences in your inner, human being. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's a kind of a real interesting silver lining to the last 12, 18 months of COVID, is that, if people come out of it the other side and, are going, wow, I started making music during lockdown and I love it, and I'm going to carry on making music. I think that's a huge upside. I did have another question. I mentioned my daughter. Well, you mentioned your daughter earlier on. She's obviously older than my daughters. What conversations did you have with them, or do you continue to have with them, about carrying on your legacy when you decide not to do it anymore? Is it something that you would like them to do, or just? Again, you can cut all this bit out as well if you. This is I'm kind of feeling like, maybe not right now, but at some point in the next 10 years, that'll be a conversation.
No,
I'll start having with my
think
kids.
it's
I'm
fair.
just interested.
Samuel said to me, he says, take me on a tour. I asked him the question when he was 7. He says, take me on a tour when I'm 13 and I'll give you an answer. So I took him on a tour when he was 13. He goes, it's really interesting, don't want to do it. My son William is a investment banker, and he's not interested in the art of guitar making. He's interested in, very intelligently running companies, and he's good at it. I don't think Sarah wants to make guitars, Christina doesn't want to make guitars, although I've made them all guitars, and Jonathan he's a drummer, he doesn't want to make guitars. So I don't want to do what I've seen or been a mistake in guitar makers' lives, where they force their children to be the guitar maker, and then the kids aren't happy. I don't want any part of it. I want to support what their dream is, Guitars was the farthest thing from my father and mother's mind. It had nothing to do with it. My father wanted me to be a mathematician. He wanted me to follow in his footsteps. And if there were literally screaming arguments in my house about algebra, I couldn't solve for X for nothing. It was literally awful. There were literally screaming arguments about I don't understand and leave me alone at the kitchen table. And so I didn't think I carried the gene. And then my son Samuel became a math teacher. He says, well, Daddy, you carried the gene. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, there's 3 kinds of math. Numeric, 1 + 1 = 2. Solve for X, that's algebra. And graphic math, which is SolidWorks. Well, guess what? A guitar maker's rotating a part in 3 dimensions in his head all day long trying to figure out how to make the thing, right? And so to me, I had the graphic part. I aced all the trig and geometry tests, but I failed all the algebra tests. So I didn't know. It's like advanced in one side and a complete doofus in the other. And calculus was painful. I failed it in college. I carry the gene, and maybe one of the grandchildren, it'll skip a generation. I have no idea, but my son Sam said, will you teach my son what you know? And I said, and it took me a long time to answer the question, because it wasn't just his son. It had to be his daughter, had to be my other kids. How much time are you willing to spend with your grandchildren teaching them? And I made the commitment to do it, but I immediately went to his wife and said, this can't just be one kid. This has got to be all the kids. I can't love one grandchild more than the other. That's unacceptable. But if one of them's interested in guitar making, I'll teach them. I mean, if you were a young guitar maker and you showed up on my doorstep and pounded on the door and said, I want to learn to be a guitar maker, I'd teach you. The thing that's interesting is anybody over 50 wants to share what they have. And there's a lot of teaching here. We had a meeting the other day where I was just trying to show how my view of humbuckings versus single coils are. And I see a P bass as a humbucker. It's two coils out of phase, but no people don't look at jazz basses and P basses as humbucker guitars. They are. But I was trying to explain all that and to try to back a student up to that position would be interesting. I don't know that I want to have that much interaction in a tough way with one of my children. That would be hard. That would be really hard. There was a thing on Rafael, what's the tennis player's name?
No,
Nadal yesterday, and his uncle taught him how to play, and his uncle's pretty hard on him. But he said there was a thing about this kid, was 3 years old, they threw a ball to him, and instead of just catching the ball, he went at the ball. And they went, oh no, we got a tennis player on our hands. Because that's what they do. And his injury and coming back and not being number one and thinking he was washed up and now coming back. Watching those kinds of human beings are extraordinary. But he showed signs of wanting to be a tennis player from very, very young. It would be nice that, someone was taking guitars apart really little. I gave my son Sam a doll, and I gave my daughter Sarah a truck when they were both 3 or 4. They threw them at each other. They were done. They weren't interested. I didn't know all this they, she pronoun stuff was going to show up like it is now, but I wanted to find out who they were. But it'd be interesting if one of the grandkids or somebody in the family wants to be a guitar maker, I'll teach them. I mean, that's going to happen with you and your kids. And your daughter's already said, I want to be a YouTuber, Dad. You already got the problem.
I need to, I think.
Have her call me. I'll tell her how to manipulate you.
I don't know him terribly well, but I'm intrigued to talk to Chris Martin about how you have a business that goes through, what must he maybe, 7th, 8th generation Martin family. I mean, I'm intrigued to know how that, because there's no way that business has gone through, 200 odd years of, producing, guitar maker after guitar maker after guitar maker. There must have been some of those Martins that brought something else to the business than being able to make a guitar.
Well, there you go. There's your next interview. Call Chris.
Yeah, probably.
So you've been very, very open, and this has been as playful as the conversation would allow, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this with me. I always have a good time with you. You and I always have a fun banter, as we would say. I mean, very often when I'm sitting in that room with you, the first goal is to make everybody on the other side of the camera laugh, not be informative, and then all the information comes out anyway. But This has been more sweet in a way, and I appreciate it very much. And now, I've never called you captain in my life, but I've called you captain 4 times today. Captain.
And look, I'm kind of
touched,
flattered as well, and happy that people seem to want to listen to people like you and I talking about, because we haven't done any playing or talked about tone really or anything in this. People are just interested in what we do day to day, and I think that's fantastic, and hopefully if anybody watches this and they're thinking of wanting to make their own guitars or start their own music business, hopefully something that we've said will help them along that journey. But yeah, I appreciate you reaching out and phoning, and I always enjoy spending time with you, and hopefully the next time it'll be in person rather than on Zoom. But I want to wish you and everyone at PRS all the best for 2021. You're, amazing team of people and an absolute pleasure to know.
So we'll go to sleep tonight with visions of building a building around all of Tahiti.
Okay. And okay, I'll let you in. You can come in as well, as long as it's big enough that, we can spend at least a little bit of time without being able to hear each other. It's all fun.
I would not choose, if I was stuck for 2 days and there was nothing else to do in the whole world. I love you very much, but you would not be my beach choice. I would probably want my wife there or my family.
I won't take that personally.
That's good.
It's fine.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, but
Okay, man,
but the black sands of Tahiti are supposed to be unbelievable.
I spent 3 weeks in South Pacific for my honeymoon 13 odd years ago, and honestly, it's paradise. It's paradise on earth. I know when I retire, I'm going back there for months. I loved it.
See ya.
Right.
You're the best.
Take care, man. Thank you very much.
We'll
and good
play
luck again
later.
with
See ya.
everything.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.